G'day, I'm Matt. This channel's called The Right Car, and this here is the updated version of the Haval Jolion from GWM. There's now a simplified range of the petrol versions of this compact SUV, but it still offers immense value for money. In fact, even better value than before. So, in this review, I'm going to tell you whether it's worth the money or if there are any hidden catches. Stay tuned. You'll find out all about it in this review. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my content. And let's check out this updated Jolion, shall we? The Haval Jolion range has been streamlined for the petrol models. Now, I've also done a full detailed review of the hybrid versions of this car, which actually could be a really good option for you if you are after something with a bit more tech to it and a bit more of a fuel efficient focus, but it does cost a fair bit more money. Now, this petrol model range, there are now just 2 versions available. Previously, there were 4, including the S grade, which you might have seen my review of. I didn't like that one at all. And then there was another version in the lineup as well, but it's been axed too. And now there's just 2 choices available. The entry-level version is called the Premium. It starts at just $26,990 drive away. It's one of the most affordable small SUVs on the market. And in terms of the space that is on offer for that kind of cash, this thing stacks up brilliantly. But it's also got a decent array of standard equipment too. You're getting LED daytime running lights, but halogen headlights, don't love that. 17-inch wheels. You've got keyless entry and push button start. The keyless entry is just on the driver's side though. That's a little bit of a cheap thing that I hate about this car. And on the inside, you're getting a pretty decent big touchscreen media system with plug-in Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and some nice features as well. And if you spend an extra $3,000 and get yourself into the Lux version of the Haval Jolion, you're getting a few extra features that you will definitely appreciate. You get full LED lights on the outside, and on the inside, you're getting a fake leather interior trim, which might not necessarily be the most convincing trim out there, but you also get electric driver's seat adjustment, heated front seats, and a big digital instrument cluster for the driver as well. Plus, the high-grade version also gets a surround view camera system, and it's a really, really good surround view system as well. All right, so it stacks up all right on value. Are there any alternatives you might want to consider? This thing makes a really strong case for itself on value, but there are some great alternatives you might want to consider. First one is the Kia Stonic. It's just been updated with extra safety technology across the range and a new turbo petrol engine across the range as well. And it does seem to be a really good option for those who are looking for something that's a bit smaller. It does have a less practical space on the inside than this car, but it is a very compact vehicle and it stacks up pretty well on value, even though it is a bit more expensive spec for spec across the range compared to this. Another one you might want to go and check out if you can afford to spend just a little bit more. You know, splurge, you only live once, all that sort of thing. The Skoda Kamiq, the entry-level version of that European compact SUV, is about $33,000 drive away. Comes with a 7-year warranty as well. The brand is the only European brand to offer a 7-year warranty in the Australian market at this point in time. And it's a really lovely thing to drive. Sure, it might not have as much bling and as much wow factor in terms of the interior presentation, but it feels really well put together and it drives beautifully as well. And finally, if you are after just a really, really cheap small SUV, the MG ZS-T seems to be a pretty good choice. Look, I don't think it's the best thing to drive, but it does tick the box in terms of the practicality, the size, and the tech as well. And thankfully, it doesn't have as many annoying safety features as this car does, which I'll tell you about soon. There are some visual changes to this updated version of the Haval Jolion, not quite as dramatic as the changes to the hybrid version, which include basically an entirely new body on top. But you do get a new grille design, new front bumper, and it does look pretty good, I reckon. I can see why people think, yep, that's a nice looking little car, and I reckon it is too. It's not my favorite car design, but it does stack up pretty well. Now, there's one thing I said before that just does annoy me about it. You've got keyless entry, but it only works on the driver's side. You don't get any other sensors on the other doors, but you can see for yourself, it is a pretty shapely little thing. And another change that's happened to this model for this update is that the Haval badging is gone. It's now GWM Jolion down there. There is no Haval badge at all, which is kind of intriguing, isn't it? Okay, let's have a look in the boot and see what we are dealing with. You can see for yourself, this is not a small SUV storage area. It's actually pretty spacious in terms of the amount of room in here. You'll see the number on your screen. And just for context, I'll show you now how much less you get in the hybrid versions of this car. And that's because they have a different rear suspension layout. So look, I reckon that this is a far more practical option for someone who is looking for a practical small SUV. And it does have a few really good features in the back as well. You've got shopping bag hooks on the side there. You've also got storage trays on either side, a nice bright LED light, and another shopping bag hook up there. And underneath the boot floor, there is a Space Saver spare wheel as well. And while Space Saver might not be as good as a full size, at least you get something in this one, which you don't get in the hybrid either. So this stacks up a lot better than the Hybrid Jolion, in my opinion. The Lux model, which is this one here, does feel a bit more special than the entry-level Premium. And part of that comes down to the fact that it gets the bigger driver info screen here. That is a nice big display, and it does have a fair bit of info on it that you can cycle through as well. It's not necessarily the simplest system to use, but I'm sure you'll get used to the interactivity with the menus and so forth. You use the steering wheel controls to interact with it, and those steering wheel controls can be just a little bit fiddly to get used to, but I'm sure it won't take you that long. Now, over here, speaking of fiddly controls, you've got this touchscreen media system. It's a decent size, there's no doubt about that. You still have to plug in for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is maybe not ideal, but it is pretty good when you are connected up. And the other thing about it is that there's still a lot you have to do through this screen, so you might find that you do get a bit frustrated because you have to do a lot through the screen. There is a panel of buttons here for you to jump through some menus, so if you want to jump to the air conditioning, you can press that button there and you can adjust your fan and your temperature and all that sort of stuff. But that's not as good as having a dial or a button for those controls, in my opinion. You can also direct the airflow on that side screen panel. And look, it's fine, but it's just not as good as it could be in terms of the interactivity with the screen. Now, this is your home screen. Is it? Yes, it's your home screen. And there's also a few other menu screens hidden away here. So we have to start the car to turn off some of these things, but I will, and I'll show you in a sec. Lane keeping, that sort of stuff, your traffic sign assistance. But strangely enough, that's in intelligent driving. You actually have to go to settings and then to intelligent ability to turn off this driver monitoring camera system, which you can see is keeping an eye on your eyes just there, those little creepy purple dots in there. That's keeping an eye on your eyes to make sure you're not too distracted. Make sure that you drive it, if you do go for a test drive, with the systems on to see if you can live with it. And there's a heap of other menus on this screen as well. You have to go through the screen to turn off your seat heating or turn it on for this high grade version. And look, that's just the fact of the matter with this car. So much is hidden through this screen. It just does take a little bit of learning, and I won't spend hours and hours talking you through it here. I'm sure if you're interested in this car, you will go and figure it out for yourself, but at least it's got Apple CarPlay, and I like that. All right. Now, down below, you've got a little storage tray here, which doesn't have a wireless phone charger, which is a bit annoying. It probably should. There's another tray here and some pen storage, coin storage, and still this rotary dial doesn't actually have stoppers on it, so it just goes round and round. It can be fiddly when you are trying to reverse parallel park or just do a maneuver in a street, for instance. There's a pair of cup holders here, one smaller than the other, kind of interesting, and a covered center console bin as well. This is the Comfort Tech fake leather interior trim, and it's not overly convincing, but at least it looks pretty good, and it's got the white stitching to make it stand out a little bit. And in terms of the materials, look, I think that the trim in here is not too bad. You've got this sort of textured finish that runs along here, and it looks pretty high-end. It's just that the livability factor maybe isn't a high-end experience. But let's check out the backseat space and see what it's like. Oh, before we do, you also get a USB port up there, which is fantastic. It means fuss-free cables for your dash cam if you run one. And yes, auto-dimming rear vision mirror as well. Cool. G'day, we're in the back seat now. I just want to show you how much headspace there is in this car. It is a very, very roomy, small SUV. It's a bit bigger than some other small SUVs, and I think that comes into account when you are considering the backseat space here. Let me show you the legroom I've got to play with. As a 6-footer, heaps. That seat is set for my driving position. I've got lots of toe room, lots of knee room, and as I showed you, lots of headroom. There's good space here for you to store things as well. There's map pockets on both seat backs. You've also got bottle holders in those doors. There are a pair of cup holders in between the seats as well. Another nice plus. And one thing I really like about this car and the use of this material is, well, you've got covers for your ISOFIX points. So that means that if you've got grubby kids, you won't get chips and gross lolly stuff down in your ISOFIX points, which is nice, I think. Right, there's also some other nice amenities back here. You've got directional air vents, a pair of USB ports as well. So those in the back should be kept pretty happy. And in terms of the space, I'm definitely happy with this experience. Under the bonnet of the petrol versions of the Haval Jolion is a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's got pretty decent power and torque figures. They're not setting any new benchmarks. And it comes as standard with a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. I have some issues with that. I'll tell you about them soon. And it's front wheel drive only. And if you're wondering about towing capacity, I'll throw some numbers on your screen now so you can see for yourself whether you think it'll fit your needs. Righto, so I've just started up the car. I'm just going to go into the menu system and switch off a few of the things that annoy me. That camera that monitors your eyesight, gone. And also I'll go into the, where is it? The car settings, intelligent drive. I'll turn off the keep lane on urgent, which is just an annoying emergency lane keeping feature. What about, what else do I need to turn off here? I'll turn off traffic sign assist. No, it's on just warning anyway. So that's okay, all right. We'll never get those moments back, people. I'm sorry to have done that to you. But that's the reality. If you buy a car like this and it has all that tech, but the usability of that tech is not as well integrated as it could be. All right, so let's go for a drive. Now, if you've seen my Haval Jolion S review where I drove the more powerful turbo version of this car, you'll know that I didn't like it to drive. I was actually pretty firm in my wording about it because it was pretty bad, honestly. I'm not surprised that they dropped it. It was more powerful, but it didn't get the power down better, and it also had different suspension, and it was worse. So look, I think that this does have the added benefit of being cheap and cheaper than before, but still, it's a bit more livable than I remember it being, and that's partly to do with the fact that it's, well, not the S. The S was bad, but I still don't love this car. I still don't love the fact that it's got a dual clutch automatic transmission that isn't well calibrated, in my opinion, to this application. Like, it does do the job and it's pretty good at shifting gears and thinking about when it should be changing gears, but it's also not the smartest in terms of the responsiveness when you are trying to do a reverse parallel park or something like that. So I'll just do one of those right now, shall I? So I can give you an indication. So just pull up here. The blinkers are really bloody loud too. Now, this gear shifter gets me every time, so I have to check to see whether it goes into reverse rather than having a movement. I have to sort of feel like I'm riding the clutch to get into a position here. And I'm in, like, it's not the worst. So you got to check to go into drive as well. It's not the worst. And shh, mate. Yeah, it's just not as easy as it could be. So I'll reverse back and get out of this spot. Just indicate out. Okay. So maybe it's okay, but it's not as good as a dual clutch automatic transmission in a Volkswagen or a Skoda, and it's not as good as a CVT in some of the other cars out there that run that sort of transmission either. It's just less livable and less likable, if I'm really, really frank with you. But you might love it, you might think it's fine, and especially if you've owned a first generation DSG product from Volkswagen, you might think that it's actually not too bad. But let's just do one out of this intersection here. So I'll just stop and then lag and then we're away. So my foot was flat for that first initial moment trying to go around that corner, but it's just the combination of the turbo lag from this engine, the dual clutch automatic transmission lag, which also adds to this sensation of just like, I'm waiting, let's go, and then all of a sudden it's bang, you're out of there. So yes, not ideal. Right, what about the other elements of the experience? It's okay. Look, I think that the ride is actually pretty good in this car. It's comfortable enough, there's no doubt about that. It's not the most dynamic feeling thing to drive in corners or anything like that, but it's not supposed to be. It's just supposed to be a family SUV that happens to be pretty compact. And I think that for that application, it is comfortable enough. Like, the ride does coast over these bumps pretty well. You still sort of feel the sharp edges here and there, but it's okay, better than some of the rivals, I would say. And the steering, it's fine. It's just like, it's predictable enough, and it's got pretty decent weighting. It's just not that fun or anything like that. But like I said, this car's not really about fun. It's about ticking boxes, and for some people it probably will tick the box. I can totally understand if it does for you. Just for me, I think that the engine transmission still needs work, but the hybrid version, you'll find the link in the description, it's much more livable in daily driving situations. So definitely worth checking out if you're considering a Jolion. All right, let's talk about fuel consumption, because that's another consideration with this car. Okay, on your screen, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the Haval Jolion petrol models. Yes, that is high. Yes, this is a small SUV. That's as high as some SUVs 2 classes up. So it's not fantastic on petrol, and on your screen, you'll see what I've seen over my week of testing this car. And yeah, it's, again, not a fantastic number. But I'm sure you'll make up your own mind as to whether you think it's a livable number or not. But keep in mind, it does have a pretty decent fuel tank capacity, and it can run on 91 run regular unleaded petrol as well. So those things might count in its favor, but I don't know. This car does have a 5-star ANCAP safety rating from 2022, so it does have all the tech you would expect, and some of it's bloody annoying, as I've said. And look, you might be fine with all this tech, but some of it just isn't as well tuned in this car as it is in other cars on the market. Now, let's talk about what you're getting as standard across the entire Jolion range. Things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's parking sensors, a reversing camera. If you choose the top spec version, you get a surround view camera. All versions have rear auto braking as well. There's blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, and traffic sign recognition as well, with adaptive cruise control as standard as well. Plus, for the airbag coverage, you've got dual front center, front side, and full length curtains. So look, it certainly ticks the box in terms of the safety stuff, but the way that the stuff works could be better. So what about ownership? Well, it does stack up pretty well on paper. Look, the warranty cover is 7 years and unlimited kilometers. That's very good for the class and for the market. There's also a 5-year roadside assistance plan included with this car, and there's a 5-year cap price servicing program as well. Now, the first service interval is a little bit shorter than the others, 12 months and 10,000 Ks. Then it's every 15,000 Ks or every year, and I'll put the average cost over the 5-year plan on your screen now. So I think it ticks the boxes when it comes to the ownership aspect, and I hope that it is a pretty nice thing to own for anyone who buys one. If you're after a budget small SUV, I can totally understand why you would choose the Jolion, and I wouldn't, because there are too many compromises that maybe annoy me just a little bit too much about this car. But in round terms, the value for money equation, the warranty, the fact that it's got 5-star ANCAP, all that stuff might be enough for you to go and have a look at one. And if you own one, let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.